Hey there, and welcome. Tonight, we're stepping back into one of America's toughest times, the Dust Bowl. Imagine living in a tiny, weather-beaten shack surrounded by endless fields of dirt and dust, where the sky turns black with storms that seem to swallow everything. You're not just watching history. You're living it, caught in the grip of relentless winds, scorching heat, and crushing poverty. As you listen, think about where you re-watching from and what time it is there. Drop a comment below. It's incredible how stories from decades ago can still reach across the world and connect us. In this video, we'll explore what life was really like for families trapped in the Dust Bowl. We'll look at the dust storms that buried homes, the fight for clean water and food, and the emotional toll of living with constant uncertainty. You'll hear about the courage of women and men who refused to give up, even when the land seemed against them. This isn't just a story about survival. It's about resilience, hope, and the human spirit enduring in the darkest of times. So make yourself comfortable, and let's dive into the dust-choked world of the Dust Bowl shack. You push open the wooden door with a soft creak, and it sticks halfway, swollen with dust, warped from time. The air inside doesn't feel much better than the air outside. It's thick, grainy. Every breath catches in your throat like it's fighting to get through. A film of dust coats everything. The walls, the tin cups, the floorboards, your eyelashes. You're not entering a home. You're stepping into survival. The shack is barely holding together. Each board groans under its own weight. Gaps between the planks let in light, and dust, always dust. It falls in slow motion from the ceiling, drifts in from the cracks, slips under the crooked door. There's no keeping it out. You stopped trying days ago, maybe weeks. The sky outside used to be blue once. You remember it faintly, like a memory someone told you about. Now it's dark, not with night, but with dirt. The wind carried entire towns into the sky, turned sunlight into shadow. Inside your shack, the windows are covered with wet sheets pinned to the frame. The trick is moisture traps the particles before they choke you. Still, your throat aches. The baby coughs in the corner, wrapped in a quilt stitched from old potato sacks and memory. You light a match to check on the stove, and the flame flickers sideways. A draft? No. Another dust storm ruse. You know the signs now. How the wind shifts. How the silence thickens before the roar. You listen. You always listen. That's how people survive here. They listen for what's missing, for what's coming. There are 4 people in this room. The space might as well be smaller, because fear takes up most of it. Your father sits by the stove, back hunched, fiddling with a cracked pair of work gloves. He hasn't had steady work since the last field went dry. His hands used to be strong. Now they shake when it's quiet. Your mother stands near the wall, forehead pressed to a sheet-covered window. She whispers to herself, a prayer or a memory. You're not sure. The child coughs again. You turn toward her, but your shoes grind against a layer of dirt thick as snow. This isn't a storm you hide from. It's a life you endure. The water jug is half full. You ration it like you ration hope. A sip in the morning. 2 spoonfuls for cooking. A dab to wipe the baby's face. The pump outside went dry last week. There's talk that someone nearby is digging deeper. You haven't seen them. But word travels here the way dust does. Slowly, chokingly, always from someone else's despair. The table in the center of the shack is wonky. One leg shorter than the rest, fixed with a folded newspaper. The front page is from last winter. It shows a photo of a farm once blooming. Crops rising in tidy rows. Your father used to fold that paper and tuck it in his pocket. Proof, he said. Proof that things grew once. Now it props up a table. Dinner tonight will be boiled potatoes, if they don't rot before sundown. You stored them in a crate, buried beneath a layer of sand. It's the only cool spot you could find. You'll mash them with salt if there's still some in the jar. No butter, No milk. The cow dried up weeks ago, wandered off. Probably didn't survive the last black blizzard. You step outside briefly. The wind hits like a fist, dry, unforgiving. You shield your eyes and peer into the horizon. Not for beauty, for danger. Storms come in waves here. You watch the land the way sailors watch the sea. If it rises, you run. If it drops, you hope. There's a fence near the shack, half collapsed, leaning against the weight of time and wind. A tumbleweed caught in the wire spins lazily, creaking like it knows something you don't. You return inside. It's safer, or at least less exposed. You sweep the floor again. It's a ritual, not a solution. Dust falls faster than you can chase it, but sweeping gives rhythm to your body. It gives you a sense of order, the illusion that something can be cleaned. Your mother says the same. She's swept the same corner 3 times today. No one laughs here. Not because there's no joy, because joy gets lost in the wind. There's a radio in the corner. Its voice is rough, static heavy, kept alive with frayed wires and prayers. It played a song once, something sweet and old, soft guitar and harmony. You cried that night, not loudly, just enough to feel. Sometimes the announcer reads news. Rain in Oklahoma, maybe. Relief coming, possibly. President's speech, more dust, more waiting. You listen anyway. It breaks the silence. Even lies help when they sound like comfort. The family sits down for supper. The fire hisses, struggling. Your father offers the first bite to the child. Then your mother. Then you. Then himself. No one speaks. The potatoes are gritty. You chew slowly. The dirt settles in your teeth like it belongs there. Outside, the storm reaches full strength. You feel it in the floor. A tremble, a vibration that crawls up your legs into your chest. The walls rattle. The roof groans. You tighten the cloth around the window. You press against it, bracing. Your father grips your shoulder. Not hard, just enough. The shack holds, barely. You close your eyes. There's a whistle in the wind now. It sounds like a cry. Or maybe it's real. Maybe someone is out there lost. You don't open the door. You were taught not to, not during storms. They say the worst ones last hours. Some days. The Black Sunday storm? That lasted until the sky turned red. People wandered blind. Children choked. Towns vanished. You weren't there. But the stories live in the bones of this shack. You wrap yourself in a blanket stitched by your grandmother. It smells of lavender, faint and fading. You think of her farm, of the kitchen that once smelled like bread. You reach for the scent. It slips through your fingers. The fire dies down. The child sleeps. Your father hums something old. A hymn, maybe. Your mother wipes a spoon clean, places it gently on the shelf. You curl beside the wall, knees to chest, listening to the wind. Tomorrow may be worse, or it may be better. That's the bargain you make here, with every sunrise, with every step, with every breath drawn from an air that fights back. You look up once more. The ceiling trembles, but it holds.
The first step onto the land outside the shack feels like stepping into a memory, but one slowly being erased. The ground is cracked, hardened, no longer the soft, dark loam that once fed your family. It groans beneath your boots with every step, brittle like old parchment. The soil, once alive, is now a ghost. This land wasn't always like this. There was a time when green rolled across the horizon. Fields of wheat, stalks of corn swaying gently in the wind. You can still hear the rustling if you close your eyes hard enough. Rosupon rouse, planted with care by hands that knew the rhythm of the earth. Your grandfather's calloused fingers, your mother's strong arms. Generations shaped the landscape, coaxing nourishment from it like a sacred pact. Those were the years when the land gave back, when it rained in spring and the runoff turned the fields to gold, when the grain filled silos and the smell of harvest drifted like perfume over the town, when tractors hummed like lullabies, and barns brimmed with bales stacked higher than your head. You used to chase rabbits between furrows, barefoot, laughing. That memory feels like a trick now, because what you see is not life. What you see is loss. The fence line that once marked the edge of your grandfather's farm now lies buried beneath. A dune of grit, the wooden posts lean as if mourning. The barbed wire stretches, rusting, sagging like it too has grown weary of holding back a world that no longer obeys boundaries. Each field, once named North Pasture, West Fort, Little Orchard, is now indistinguishable. Just miles of silence. The orchard with its sweet peat gone, blown away or suffocated. The pasture with wildflowers smothered. You walk past the remnants of a chicken coop. The boards collapsed inward like the wind inhaled and never exhaled. A single chicken feather flutters from beneath the rubble. Strange how even that looks gray now, color stripped by time and storm. A few stunted stalks push out from the dust. Weeds, maybe survivors, not edible, just persistent. You admire them anyway, because persistence is holy here. The barn still stands, barely. Its red paint faded into rust and sand. Inside, silence reigns. A broken yoke rests against the wall. A pitchfork bent, a pile of feed sacks covered in a crust of silt. You once played here as a child, building castles out of hay. You fell asleep in the loft once, the scent of grain wrapping around you like comfort. Now, the hay is gone. Temme slept. Even the fires moved on. And yet, you stay. Not because of logic, but because of legacy. This land has fed generations. Eat! Fen! And you keep hoping, Eurasian ID, that it will remember how to feed again. Your father talks about the old days sometime before the dust. He says rain came without begging. That crops grew because the land loved the hands that tilled it. He remembers putting seeds into soil so rich it crumbled like chocolate cake. He remembers harvest moons and the sound of laughter bouncing off silos. Those stories feel like folklore now, because this is the age of drought. The water table sank beyond reach. The well at the far end of the property used to sing when the bucket dropped. Now it just echoes. You trade once, let the rope unwind. The pulley squeal, the bucket descend, and heard only silence. You didn't pull it back up. What's the point? The cattle are gone. You sold them first. Tente mule. Then the tractor. Bit by bit, the tools of abundance slipped away. Pawned, traded, surrendered. What remains is memory. Stubborn aching memory. You kneel and run your fingers through the dust. It doesn't feel like soil. It's not what it used to be. The topsoil is gone, lifted by the wind like a carpet pulled from under your life. What's left doesn't nourish. It clings. It smothers. It doesn't grow anything but regret. The government calls it erosion. You call it betrayal. You walk to the edge of the property. A line of windbreak trees once stood here. Cottonwoods, tall and proud. They were planted to hold the dust back. Two, climb aside. Anchor the earth. Only one remains. Bent. Its bark stripped. Its leaves browned. You touch it anyway! Because sometimes survival is about ritual. You whisper to it like you did when you were small. As if trees understand sorrow. As if they remember. A neighbor's farm lies beyond the tree line, or what used to be a farm. You see, a structure collapsed in on itself. The roof caved. A tractor half submerged in sand. They left 2 months ago. Took their chances heading west. California, maybe. You watched their truck vanish over the horizon. It kicked up a trail of dust that didn't settle for days. People say the West has jobs. They say there are fruit orchards and irrigation and sunshine. They say you can start over. But your family didn't go. You couldn't. This land has your name written in it, even if the letters are fading. At night, you sometimes dream of rain, not just sprinkles, but a downpour, fat drops drumming on the roof, pooling in basins, saturating the earth until the dust turns back into dirt. In your dreams, sink your fingers into that wet soil and cry, not from pain, from relief, from remembrance. But in the morning, the sky is still lit. Your mother once said that land remembers kindness, that if you nurture it, it will nurture you back. You wonder if that's still true. You wonder if kindness matters when the wind is this cruel. A government man came last month. He had maps and pamphlets. He said conservation was coming. He said things like crop rotation and soil rehabilitation. He wore a clean suit and had dust on his shoes, like it surprised him. Your father listened, nodded, took the pamphlet, then burned it that night like it was kindling. The flame was the brightest light you'd seen all week. Hope here is a strange thing. It arrives quietly, and often with strings. You've learned not to trust it outright. Instead, you trust routines. You water the dry garden, though nothing grows. You touch the seed jar every morning. You sweep the porch, even when the wind undoes it by midday. You say goodnight to the land. You tell it just in case it's listening. Some nights, your father walks the perimeter of the property like a soldier. Slow, measured steps, boot sinking slightly with each stride. You asked him once why he still did it. He said, "Because it's mine." And you understood. Land isn't just where you live. It's who you are. And even when it forgets you, you remember it. The cracks in the earth look wider this week, like something beneath is trying to speak. You kneel again, press your ear to the ground. Nothing, just silence. But you wait. You wait anyway, because that's what you do. You wait for the land to remember, for the clouds to gather, for the fields to rise again.
You wait to silence, not the peaceful kind that cradles you at dawn, but the kind that warns. The air feels heavy, even before your eyes open, thick and unmoving. You lie still, listening. The baby doesn't stir. Your mother doesn't hum. Even the wind, ever present, seems to have taken a breath and held it. That's how you know it's coming, not because of sound, because of its absence. The room has a strange hue, filtered through the damp cloths hanging over the windows. It's a reddish tint this morning, more sinister than yesterday's gray. You sit up slowly, feeling grit gather in the folds of your blanket, against the sweat of your skin. Your throat already stings. You haven't even stepped outside. A low groan comes from the rafters. Wood flexing, stretching, warning. Your father's silhouette moves near the stove, lighting a match that flickers too quickly. The flame dances sideways again. He says nothing. He doesn't need to. That flicker means the wind has returned, but not gently. It's building, rising, ready to spill over. You step toward the door. The air is charged. The dust isn't falling lazily today. It's twitching, chittering in gusts that don't yet scream, but whisper with menace. Outside, the sky is an ugly bruise. Deep brown along the horizon, rust red above. The sun is missing, just gone, erased by the thing that's rolling toward you like the end of the world. The storm doesn't arrive all at once. It builds in fragments, picking up the land like puzzle pieces and reassembling it into something monstrous. It begins with wind, sharp, slicing through every crack. You shove towels against the doorframe, patch the window coverings, pin the sheets tighter. Your mother hands you jars with soaked rags to hold against your mouth. "Breathe through this," she says. Not too deep. Her eyes are wide, not with panic, but with something colder. Experience. Then the sky collapses. The first gust hits like a freight train. The shack shudders. Dust pours in, not like a leak, but like a flood. You blink and feel grains behind your eyelids. You open your mouth and taste earth. The roar begins low, like a growl, and rises louder than any thunder, louder than trains or tornadoes or grief. It's the kind of sound that swallows thought. It doesn't howl. It devours. Your father braces against the stove, one hand on the wall, the other clenched into a fist. His knuckles are white. He's seen this before. Maybe not this one, but he's seen what happens when the wind doesn't stop. Outside, visibility drops to inches. The world is a smear. The shack across the way vanishes. The barn dissolves. The fence rattles like bones. You can't see the tree anymore, not even the one that never gave up. Inside, light disappears. Not gradually, suddenly. You scramble for the oil lamp. The wick sputters but holds. The flame flickers like it's gasping. You adjust the chimney, hands trembling. Around you, everything becomes orange-black, the color of fire and shadow. You huddle close, not for warmth, but to stay tethered. Because this storm unmoors everything. The baby cries. It's not a loud cry. It's strained, like she's trying to cry through layers of dust and fear. Your mother rocks her gently, humming that tune again, the same one she hummed yesterday and the day before. It's a lullaby from before the storms. You don't know the words, but you know the melody. It sounds like memory, fragile, fleeting, full of longing. Your father pushes against the door to keep it closed. Dust curls in through every hinge, every knot in the wood. The air inside thickens like smoke. You breathe shallow. You cough. Your chest burns. The rag over your mouth is damp and gray now, useless. You replace it with another. Your skin itches. Your hair clumps. Your ears feel like they've been stuffed with ash. The storm is a wall of punishment. And yet, you endure. Minutes stretch. Hours, maybe. Time doesn't tick here. It drags. You try not to count. You try not to think. You hum with your mother. You listen to the wind and wonder if it has a face, if it remembers who you are. Then the rattling begins. The window shakes violently, the nails pulling outward. You rush over and press your back against the frame. Your father joins you, both of you holding it in place. The glass doesn't break, not yet, but the pressure mounts. The storm pushes like it's trying to rip the house apart, one piece at a time. Your mother grabs a hammer and extra nails. She begins reinforcing the boards over the window, each thump louder than the last. The sound blends into the storm, like defiance swallowed by fury. You keep pressing, keep bracing. The baby stops crying. You panic until she coughs. That cough is worse, deeper, ragged. You bring her water, just a spoonful. She sips weakly. Her cheeks are flecked with red dust. You wipe them with your last clean cloth, holding her close. Her breathing is labored, but she's still breathing. Eventually, the wind shifts. Not weaker, just different. You sense it before you hear it, like the storm is circling, like it's changing tactics. A roar from the south. The shack groans again. The roof lifts slightly, a terrifying sound, a sound of strain, of failure. You all freeze, eyes glued upward. Your father grabs boards and twine and begins tying the support beams together. You help. You don't ask. This isn't a moment for questions. It's a moment to hold the world in place with string and stubbornness. As the storm rages, your thoughts drift to that first rainfall you remember. The way it smelled. Petrichor, your grandmother called it. The way it pooled in your palms, rinsed the sweat from your brow. You thought it would never stop raining then. You thought drought was fiction. Funny how memory mocks you. There's a crash outside. Something large, maybe the old water barrel, hurled by wind. You don't check. You don't dare open the door. Not now. Because this storm isn't just dangerous. It's alive. And it wants in. You press your ear to the wall. You can hear it whisper, not words, but intent. The wind speaks in violence, in finality. It says, forget everything you knew. This land belongs to me now. But you whisper back. You whisper hope. You think of green, of life, of rebuilding, of faith. Because storms don't last. Not forever. Eventually, even fury runs out. And after hours of chaos, the spinning, the rattling, the choking, the wind lowers its voice. The dust slows its assault. You feel the pressure ease. The silence doesn't return all at once. It comes in waves, softening. The light through the cloth changes. You blink and see the shape of the window again. The wind is no longer screaming. It's sighing. You unwrap the cloth from your mouth. Your first deep breath is painful, sharp, but relieving. You cough it out. Your mother fans the air with her apron. The baby sleeps. Your father slumps against the wall, arms limp, eyes blank. You survived. Not unscarred, not unchanged. But you're still here. You open the door slowly. The hinges screech, dust falling like ash from the frame. The world outside is foreign. Nothing is where it was. The fence is gone, the chicken coop leveled, the ground buried in dunes. The sky is a dirty pale, but the sun peeks through faintly, a shy, golden eye. You step out. Your boots sink deeper than before. Your skin is coated, your hair tangled, but you step anyway. Each footfall is a testament, not to strength, to stubbornness. You scan the horizon. Shapes emerge, survivors. The barn still stands, barely. The tree leans more than yesterday, but it's still rooted. You walk to it, hand outstretched, and touch the bark. It's warm. You whisper again. The storm tried to erase you. It didn't. The shack stands there bare, weathered, and refusing to fall. It's not a house. It's a question. One you ask yourself every night. Is this place keeping you safe, or holding you hostage? From the outside, it's a skeleton of survival. The boards don't match. The canvas is tattered from years of fighting off the wind. Rusted nails poke out like thorns. The roof sags like it's remembering better days. You see it from a distance and wonder if it's about to collapse. But it doesn't. Not yet. It stands through mercy and muscle memory. Inside, the air barely belongs to you. It thickens with dust even before you close the door. Each time you sweep, each time you shake out a blanket, a new layer settles. It's like trying to empty the ocean with a spoon. The floor crunches underfoot. The walls shed particles in silence. Everything you touch carries the same texture, gritty, dry, exhausted. Even comfort feels abrasive. There's a bed in one corner, or what passes for a bed. Wooden slats topped with old quilts and feed sacks. The springs squeal whenever you shift. Privacy doesn't live here. Curtains don't exist, not because you didn't want them, but because they wouldn't matter. There's only one room. You sleep where you sit. You eat where you fold laundry. You cry with someone watching. That's just life here. Your parents speak in half phrases, hunched around the stove most evenings. Their voices are low, reserved not for secrecy, but for scarcity sound, like everything else is rationed. You hear them talk about water, about debt, about the farm that used to rise green behind the window. But mostly, they talk about holding on. Not thriving, just holding on. At night, you lie awake and listen to the house breathe boards stretching, wind poking through seams, the ceiling shuddering. Sometimes it feels like the shack is alive, not kindly, like something old and tired, waiting for the right gust to let go. The dust presses in, not just through the cracks, but emotionally, like it's trying to get inside your thoughts. It coats everything, the dishes, the pots, the worn radio on the shelf. Even the wallpaper, what little remains, has faded into sepia tones. You used to wipe the surfaces every day. Now you wonder what the point is. Your father has patched the wall dozens of times. Bits of metal, cloth, cardboard. The repairs don't hold forever. He knows this, but he does it anyway. You watch him hammer the same corner 3 times in 1 week. It's the ritual, not the result, that gives him something to grasp. And then there's the stove. It's the heart of the room. Or maybe the lungs. It chokes and sputters and groans. But when it works, it brings heat. Not enough to chase the chill, but enough to remind you you're not alone. On good nights, the flames lick high and steady, casting a golden glow across the shack's uneven lines. On bad nights, the fire dies early. Cold settles in like grief. You eat in silence. There's no table anymore, just a crate turned upside down and a few overturned buckets. Meals are short, bland, simple. Potatoes when you're lucky. Beans when you're not. Sometimes salt. Rarely meat. You chew slowly, partly because it's respectful, mostly because it stretches the time between hunger and disappointment. There's a photograph above the shelf, black and white. Your grandparents on the porch of this very shack. Only then it looked cleaner, brighter, fuller. You stare at it often, not because you miss them, but because the shack looks like it used to be proud. Now it just looks tired. Your siblings share the mattress near the wall. You used to argue about space. Now you welcome the closeness. Warmth is a currency you don't waste. You wake up tangled together, every movement stirring a cloud of grit. But nobody complains. Not anymore. Rain is a fantasy. You speak of it the way poets speak of heaven. You imagine the roof leaking, water pooling in pots, the sound on canvas hypnotic, forgiving. You dream in wet. But your reality is dry. Every nail in the shack moans with rust. The hinges creak with exhaustion. Doors don't shut. They surrender. You try to make things better. You sew. You rearrange. You write notes in chalk on the beam to remind yourself of stories. But eventually, the wind brushes them away. During storms, the shack becomes something else. A battleground. You pin cloth to the windows. You brace the door with your body. The walls tremble, and the dust swarms like angry bees. You don't fear the storm anymore. You fear what it makes of this place, the way it turns your home into a coffin. Sometimes you think of escape. You hear stories of people heading west. California, Oregon, places where water isn't begged for and crops still answer when planted. You picture wide highways and billboards promising a better life. You imagine a house with rooms, with doors that shut, with windows that open to sky, not sorrow. But the shack holds your history. Every scratch, every repair, every nail driven by someone who hoped. So you stay, not because you love it, but because it hasn't let you down completely. Yet, you clean again. Not because it'll stay clean, but because it reminds you that effort is still yours to give. The morning begins the same way it always does, with thirst. Not the kind that creeps in slowly, politely announcing itself. No, this kind arrives with authority. It clings to your tongue, cracks your lips, sits heavy in your throat before you've even opened your eyes. You cough, dry, rasping, as if your lungs are trying to expel dust that will never leave. And in that moment, before your feet even hit the floor, you remember, water must be measured today. Again, the jug near the stove sits half full, or half empty. You stare at it like it's a stranger. You've memorized its curves, its weight, the way condensation used to bead along its edges in spring, long gone now. You lift it slowly, hearing the soft slosh. There's enough for breakfast, maybe a spoonful to rinse your mouth. One ladle for your mother's simmering beans, but that's it. Bathing? Not today, not tomorrow either. Most weeks, it's a dream you borrow. Splashy memories from years before the drought, when Saturday evenings meant warm tubs, clean towels, lavender soap. These days, the wash basin collects dust instead of water. Your father sits outside, watching the sky. Not because it's beautiful. It's not. It's a dull smear of brown, thick with sediment. But he watches anyway, hoping for clouds. Not the angry kind that bring dust storms, the kind that might spill relief. When a single drop hits the ground, you all scramble to place buckets, basins, bowls. Collect rain, catch hope, but most days it never comes. Inside the shack, the water ritual is sacred. The first sip is always the baby's. She's too young to understand scarcity, but her body knows. Her skin is dry. Her breath is shallow. You dip your finger into the ladle and press it gently to her lips. She suckles instinctively. It's not enough, but it's something. Your mother boils the beans with the smallest amount she can. You know the dance. Add water, stir, wait, add hope, stir again. Sometimes it works. Sometimes the beans remain hard. Still, you eat them because they fill the space between hunger and sickness. The pump outside hasn't worked in months. At first, your father tried daily. Hands wrapped around the cold handle, pushing, pulling, coaxing. Nothing, not even air. The well ran dry, and with it, so did that part of him that believed everything was temporary. Now he just sits beside it sometimes, like he's mourning. Occasionally, you get desperate. You dig shallow trenches in places where the soil still darkens slightly after storms. A technique borrowed from neighbors who left. You place metal sheets along the edges, hoping condensation will gather overnight and drip into cups. You check them in the morning. 1 drop, 2. You celebrate like it's a feast. But even rain isn't trustworthy. During Black Sunday, water collected in pots was darker than the dirt itself. You boiled it 5 times and still tasted dust. You drank it anyway. That night, your sister developed a cough so deep it lasted weeks. The doctor was unreachable. You rationed syrup instead. Clean water is less about purity now, more about timing. If you catch it mid-storm, you risk contamination. If you wait too long, you risk missing it entirely. So you take chances. You filter through cloth. You boil. You pray. You used to wash clothes weekly. Now it's monthly if you're lucky. You fill a basin with what little you've gathered, stir in ashes to mimic soap, scrub with your knuckles till they bleed. Then hang the garments in the dusty wind, hoping they'll dry without being dirtier than before. When your skin itches, you don't scratch. You just endure. Because rashes mean infections. Infections need medicine. Medicine needs money. And nothing is more expensive than disease. Your neighbors, before they left, spoke of cisterns and barrels. One family built a filtration system out of sand, charcoal, and pebbles. It worked for a time. Then the barrel cracked. The boy got sick. They packed a truck and disappeared into the west. Your father considered it, leaving, heading toward rivers and better luck. But the land held him, and so did history. This shack may crumble, but it's where his children were born, where your grandmother told stories, where hope once bloomed. So you stay, even when the water betrays you. The government sends pamphlets, advice, conservation guides, diagrams. You read them, absorb the pages like scripture, then tuck them away. Some tricks help, others feel like mockery. Use cloth to collect dew. Dew doesn't exist here anymore. Some days you barter. A neighbor trades a gallon for 2 eggs. Someone further down trades jars for tin. Once you offered your mother's shawl, the last gift from her wedding, for a bucket. She said no. You didn't ask again. When someone falls sick, water becomes medicine. You place damp cloths on fevered foreheads. You boil what little you have for tea made from weeds that might help. You whisper comfort. You believe in healing, not because you're naive, but because you have to. And yet, water is not just a struggle. It's a divider. Those with access become leaders. Those without grow quiet. A nearby church offers water twice a week. You walk miles with tin pails. Wait in line. Sing hymns. Receive 1 ladle per person. Children first. Elders next. You don't complain. You just carry the pail back, both hands steady, eyes forward. When you finally wash your face, really wash it, you feel reborn. The grit peels away. Your skin breathes again. You see yourself in the mirror, beneath the layers, the fatigue, the dust. You blink, and for a moment, you recognize joy. Your mother places a jug near the door, a sacred space. No one touches it. Emergency only. You've stared at it during long nights, wondering when the threshold of emergency arrives. She always knows. Your father plans to dig a new well, deeper this time. The neighbors scoff, say it's fool's hope. But he gathers tools, measures, marks the ground. You help because dreaming is free. You dig until your hands blister. You whisper into the soil. Hold us, feed us, forgive us. No answer comes. Yet you dig. There is something distinct about the way children cough in the Dust Bowl. It's not the high, dramatic sound you hear when someone catches a cold or a flu. It's quieter, sharper, a shallow rasp that drifts through the shack like a ghost. It's most noticeable at night, when the wind dies down and the silence settles into corners. That's when their suffering speaks, not in words, but in coughs and breaths that sound too fragile for their small lungs. You lie there, listening to your sister wheeze beneath her quilt, the fabric rising in hesitant jerks. She doesn't complain. None of the children do. That's part of the tragedy. They've learned not to expect comfort, not to cry out. The world taught them early that silence stretches farther than sound. Every cough, every burning inhale is tucked beneath the rhythm of survival. School used to be part of their world. Chalk dust, recess, arithmetic scribbled on lined paper. The classroom was a place of stories, light, imagination. But now, it's a name with no meaning. The schoolhouse stands abandoned at the edge of town. A cracked bell hangs above the door, motionless. Desks are buried beneath drifts of dust. Books rot in shelves, untouched. Even the flag is gone, lifted by a storm, and never seen again. Their education now is built from chores and observations. They know how to sweep dust from every crevice, how to pin wet cloths over windows, how to ration food, scrub beans, boil water. They can spot a storm by the way the light changes, the way the silence deepens. They know when to hide, when to brace, when to pray. It's a curriculum of survival. And they pass every test not with grades, but with breath. The youngest children, those who don't remember green, walk through the world with confusion. They see photographs of rivers and butterflies and can't reconcile them with the barrenness around them. You showed your brother a picture once of Yosemite, wide and lush, and he blinked like it was fiction. "Where does that air come from?" he asked. You couldn't answer. They spend their days indoors mostly. Outside is unsafe. The dust is more than just an inconvenience. It's invasive, predatory. It settles in ears, eyes, lungs. It hides in food and blankets and dreams. Even playing indoors carries risk. They chase one another between crates, stomp around the mattress, but always with a cough at the edge of laughter. Once, your sister tried to skip rope in the yard. The rope whipped through the haze as she counted. 1, 2, 3. Then she fell to her knees, coughing violently. You ran to her with a rag soaked in vinegar, held it to her mouth, waited. Her breath returned, shaky, pained. You haven't seen the rope since. Some nights, the children huddle close, not just for warmth, but for comfort. They wrap themselves in old quilts, whisper stories to one another, made-up tales about rain cities and candy roads. Sometimes they speak of escape. California has fruit, one child says. I saw a picture. Another nods solemnly. I want to eat an orange. The innocence in their voices is heartbreaking. You want to tell them they will someday. But even the word someday feels brittle. Their bodies change. Pale from lack of sun. Thin from lack of nutrition. Their growth charts, once marked on the wall in pencil, now taper off. You see their ribs. You hear their joints crack when they stretch. You watch them sleep too often, not out of rest, but fatigue. This suffering isn't loud. It's quiet, deep, lingering. Your mother worries endlessly. She wraps scarves around their mouths when storms come. She boils water for herbal teas. She mends socks, patches elbows, makes broth from whatever can be salvaged. Her love is fierce, practical. But her eyes give her away. Each time she lifts the baby, her gaze lingers, watching, measuring, hoping. There's no medicine. There was a clinic once, run by a nurse named Alma. She left 2 winters ago. Said she couldn't watch another child wheeze to death in a shack with no tools to help. Your family kept her pamphlets, Tips on breathing techniques, steam remedies, poultices. You try them all. Boil water with eucalyptus if you have it. Drip honey into tea. Rub chests with mustard paste. None of it cures, but it comforts. Sometimes the older children grow sullen faster. There's no room for adolescence here. No rebellion, no self-discovery. Just chores. They fetch water, haul kindling, patch walls, cook. They've become small adults, too aware of sacrifice. You watched your brother barter his only toy, a wooden train, for a pail of water. He didn't cry. You did. Birthdays go uncelebrated. Not out of neglect, but necessity. What can you offer? Cake is impossible. Presents are foolishness. So instead, you mark the day with a story. A candle lit for 2 minutes. A song, sung softly. They smile because they know you tried. They never ask for more. In town, children wear goggles and masks during dust storms. When you see them, it's surreal, like they're soldiers instead of students. One boy's mask was stitched from an old pillowcase. His goggles fogged over. He stumbled through the market, looking for canned peaches. Found none. The local radio station once played a program for children, stories from afar, gentle songs, riddles. It stopped airing last year. Static now fills the space where imagination used to thrive. Your siblings still listen, hoping it'll come back. They hear the crackle and pretend it's music. During Black Sunday, dozens of children were lost. Not dead, lost. Some wandered blindly during the worst of it, separated from parents. Others inhaled so much dust, their lungs collapsed. One girl died beside a fence, clutching her doll. The paper printed her name, Lydia. You never met her. But her story lives in every cough you hear now. Government officials arrive sometimes. They distribute masks, pamphlets, promises. Relief is coming, they say. Hang tight. Your siblings stand in line, eyes wide. They receive small sacks of flour, tiny jars of peanut butter. The youngest asks, "Will this make me stop coughing?" The man doesn't reply. Still, the children find joy. Strange, isn't it? In the middle of storms, inside these walls, amid hunger and silence, they laugh. Sometimes uncontrollably. Over spilled beans, over funny shadows, over words mispronounced. It's not loud laughter, but it's real. You hold on to it. Record it in your mind. Remind yourself that joy is rebellion. They invent games. One is Escape California. They pack pretend suitcases. Hold imaginary maps. Debate over routes. We'll need apples, one says seriously, and rope. Another insists on bringing the cat, though the cat died 2 seasons ago. You let them play. It's medicine. Some try to write, with charcoal, on boxes. In margins of old newspapers, they scribble poems, letters, observations. The dust is mean, one child writes, but I'm meaner. You post it on the wall, because hope needs a home. Eventually, evening comes. The wind picks up again. Coughs return, blankets rise. Children close their eyes against the storm and sleep in silence, but not in surrender. Never in surrender. At first, you think it's evening. That strange amber-brown light stretching across the horizon, muted, grainy, dense, could easily be mistaken for dusk. But the clock says it's morning. A new day. Although nothing about it feels new. The sky, once pale and empty, begins to fill like lungs before a scream. You've learned the warning signs, not the obvious ones, but the subtler signals that only a Dust Bowl survivor can decode. The silence grows hollow, pressed flat by invisible pressure. Birds disappear before you notice they're gone. The wind stutters, brief, unpredictable breaths gathering force. And then the color changes. Not gently. Suddenly, it's not the hue that alarms you. It's the speed of transformation. Within minutes, the sky bleeds away into shadow. A copper smear creeps from the west, rolling low and brutal. Someone shouts, but their voice is already lost to the wind. You run inside the shack. Your hands find towels, cloth, wire, anything that might reinforce the door, seal the windows. It's all routine now, a dance repeated hundreds of times. Your body remembers what panic forgets. You brace, secure, pin, tighten. Your father nails the sheet to the wall again. Your mother covers the child with a damp quilt. You darken the oil lamp in preparation. And then you wait. Outside, the storm descends. It doesn't arrive like rain or snow or thunder. It charges. A living force made not of wind, but of earth in motion. The sky isn't sky anymore. It's terrain. Brown waves crash against rooftops. Dust fills the air, swallowing fences, barns, everything in sight. Visibility drops to inches, then to nothing. There's no sunrise, no shadows, no direction, only dust. It scratches the windows like claws, slaps the sides of the shack with fists made of soil and fury. You feel it pressing through the walls, around the floorboards. Even where there is no hole, no crack, the dust finds a way in. That's what makes it terrifying. It's persistence. It's hunger. The storm doesn't just cover things. It rewrites them. Your roof creaks in protest, and the nails begin to lift. The wind hurls debris like bullets. Bits of fence, chunks of canvas, broken shingles. You hear each impact. The shack trembles. The ceiling breathes in and out like a wounded animal. You imagine the whole house lifting off its foundation. Airborne, powerless. You cover your mouth. You breathe through cloth soaked in vinegar. You sit against the wall with your knees pulled tight. The baby coughs in intervals, dry, spaced, painful. You count each one, not out of science, out of helplessness. Your mother rocks her gently. No lullabies tonight. Just quiet prayers whispered into choking air. This isn't weather. It's punishment. Your father walks to the window, pressing his hand against the frame. His fingers are scarred, knotted with work and time, and yet they shake. Dust storms aren't new, but this one feels different, deeper, angrier, almost personal. You remember last year's storm, the one that peeled shingles off the barn and buried the pig pen. You shoveled for days, lifting grit until your arms gave out. When the air cleared, you found the wheelbarrow upside down beneath 3 feet of earth. You called it the ghost harvest. This storm is worse. You feel it not just in the walls, but in your chest, the way your breath shortens, the way your thoughts scatter. You feel targeted, as if nature isn't indifferent this time, as if it's responding to something, retaliating. And what's most disturbing, you don't even know what you did. You didn't cause the drought. You didn't plan monoculture farming. You didn't rip up the prairie grasses. But you live in the aftermath. You live in the belly of the consequence. Your crops won't survive this one. If anything dared sprout before now, it'll be gone, shredded, buried, poisoned by grit. Last week, your father found a single green shoot in the garden. He wept. The storm steals that too. The fence is probably gone. It doesn't matter. It never held anything in. Not the wind, not the cattle, not the despair. Time inside the storm warps. Hours stretch without shape. You sit close to the stove, even though it's off, just to feel centered. Your thoughts drift. You wonder where the dust comes from. What towns, what broken fields, what bones. You wonder who it buried before it came here. Each storm writes its own chapter in the family archive. You remember the day one came so fast your brother didn't make it home. Stuck outside in the whirlwind, he tied his shirt over his mouth and crawled his way to the barn, blind and gasping. He doesn't speak much now, not since. The newspapers say the land has turned against you. That's dramatic, you think, but not inaccurate. You used to believe nature was a partner. Now it feels like an adversary. The Dust Bowl storms don't just threaten survival. They threaten identity. You've spent generations with your hands in the soil. You've fed it, praised it, cursed it. You've raised children on it, buried dreams in it. You thought it knew you. But this soil doesn't know anyone now. It flies. It attacks. It forgets. When the storm finally lessens, and it always does eventually, the quiet returns slowly. The roar fades into whisper. The shack stops rattling. The walls breathe easier. You lift the cloth from your mouth and inhale deeply, painfully. You blink grit from your eyes. The baby sleeps. You wait another hour before checking outside. The door sticks. You shoulder it open. The sun returns like an apology. But everything else is ruined. The yard is buried beneath dunes. The path to the barn is gone. The trees are skeletal. The fields are leveled. You stand in the doorway, not stepping out yet, and let the enormity of loss settle around you. Your boots find the earth eventually. You walk, slowly, sinking with each stride. Fences swallowed, crops erased, the water barrel overturned, the barn's roof half missing, a plank embedded in the side of the chicken coop like a spear. You find the shovel, start digging, not out of necessity, but because action is the only antidote to grief. Your father joins you. Your mother sweeps the porch. The baby coughs again. The sky above is pale now, but you've learned not to trust it. There is no sound as haunting as the growl of an empty stomach when everything you own has already been offered to silence it. In the Dust Bowl, hunger is not just a feeling, it's a presence. It lingers in corners, presses into the quiet spaces between conversations, hovers over dinner pots like a spirit refusing to leave. It rides the wind and settles into bone, whispering reminders that comfort is no longer part of daily life. Your meals begin with arithmetic. How much flour remains? How many beans are still good? Is the salted pork still edible? And can it stretch through the week? You add and subtract in silence, measuring your family's will against your pantry's reality. Hunger doesn't obey math. It rises even when the numbers say it shouldn't. You open the wooden cabinet slowly. Hinges squeal. Inside, jars of dry goods sit like tombstones. One holds flour, sifted twice to remove grit. Another contains a handful of dried beans. A small tin with a sliver of lard rests beside a cloth-wrapped packet of salt. You stare at the flour. It used to be white. Now it's tinged with gray, a subtle reminder that even nourishment cannot outrun dust. Breakfast isn't grand, never is. Usually a biscuit if there's flour to spare and the lard hasn't spoiled. No butter, no jam, just dry bread broken apart in silence. On rare days, there's a tin of peaches, the syrup savored with reverence, the fruit cut into the tiniest pieces, so everyone gets a sliver of sweetness. Lunch is optional. More accurately, it's a decision. Some days, you choose not to eat at midday so you can eat at dusk. Your stomach protests, then adapts. You fill the gap with tasks, sweeping dust, checking traps, scraping rust from old pots. It's strange how hunger makes you more aware of your hands. You watch them work and wonder how they still find purpose without fuel. Dinner is the ritual. It's not a meal. It's a performance. The pot is placed on the stove, beans soaked for hours, salted pork added for flavor more than substance. The smell is faint, but everyone inhales it like salvation. Your mother stirs with care. Your father watches. The children sit in anticipation, not chatting, not laughing, just watching. When the food is served, portions are measured with surgical precision. The baby receives the first spoonful, then your siblings, then your mother, then your father. You eat last, not because you're less important, but because this is the order. It's been decided over years of scarcity. Every bite counts. Every bean chewed slowly. Every sip rationed. Hunger dulls your tongue. You forget what spice tastes like. Pepper, cinnamon, garlic. Just stories told by people with better luck. Your taste buds shrink, just like your pantry. You tried gardening once. Dug up the yard, planted seeds, watered the soil with what little you could spare. But the land didn't respond. The dust suffocated sprouts before they broke ground. The sun blistered everything. Your green dreams browned before they could breathe. You buried the broken stems with ceremony, then put away the trowel. Haven't used it since. Hunting is worse. There's nothing to hunt. The rabbits are gone. The deer vanished seasons ago. Even the birds disappeared, choked or driven away by wind. Once, your brother spotted a prairie dog near the fence line. He grabbed a slingshot, missed, chased it, came back empty-handed and coughing. You never saw the animal again. In town, food is currency. People barter nails for onions, blankets for beef jerky. A spool of thread might earn you cornmeal, but prices rise with storms. 1 week a can of beans is 10 cents, the next it's 30. No one argues. The land sets the value now. You go to market sometimes, walking miles through wind and shadow. You pass abandoned homes, skeletons of farms. Carrying a pouch of coins, you negotiate carefully. You inspect every apple, every potato, for rot, for bugs, for lies. You return home with what you can, and lie about how much it cost. Your family had livestock once. Chickens, a cow, a pig, all gone. One by one, they were sold, slaughtered, or lost to the storms. The chicken coop collapsed last winter. The cow dried up before spring. The pig wandered off during a blackout. You miss their sounds, their presence. But mostly, you miss the meals they offered. Salted pork is your luxury now. A slab kept in wax paper, hidden behind the flour jar. You cut from it sparingly. The knife slices thinly. You press the meat into the pot and let it soften the beans. The flavor lingers longer than the bite. Neighbors speak of soup kitchens, of government aid, of canned goods shipped from back east. But access is inconsistent. Some towns get deliveries. Others wait. Some never receive anything. You write letters. You pray. You boil water and stir hope into the pot. Once, a man came through offering cans of chili and crackers. Said he was part of a church group. You took what he had, thanked him, fed the children. Then he vanished. Maybe he was real. Maybe not. You don't question generosity. You swallow it when it comes. The children rarely complain. They chew with resignation, nod with thanks, rinse their bowls with dust-covered hands. You hear them whisper about cakes, pies, lemon drops. They remember sweets the way others remember music. You promise one day you'll bake them a real meal. They smile and cough, believing you. Your mother keeps a recipe book. Not for use, just for remembrance. Pages stained with age. Measurements for dishes never made. She runs her fingers across the ingredients, lips moving as she recites steps aloud. It's her ritual, her rebellion, her way of keeping flavor alive. Sometimes you catch yourself daydreaming. About roast chicken, about honey-drizzled cornbread, about butter melting into peas. Your mouth waters, your heart aches. Then you stir the beans again and let fantasy evaporate. Your father once hunted buffalo. Long ago. He tells stories now of massive beasts thundering across plains, of fireside meals, of meat enough for weeks. You listen in awe. You picture food not as necessity, but as abundance. He speaks slowly, voice heavy with memory. You wish you could have seen it, but those days are gone. Now you measure life in spoonfuls, and still you survive. In the quiet hours before dawn, Fear sits on the edge of your bed like an old friend you wish would leave. Not the fear that startles. This is slower, more patient. The kind that curls into corners and waits for you to acknowledge it. It presses into your chest as you wrap yourself tighter in a quilt that barely holds warmth. The wind outside has calmed, but that only makes the silence louder. You stare at the ceiling, cracked, groaning, patched with cloth and prayers. The air tastes of sand. The blankets carry the scent of soil. And somewhere between the ache in your knees and the scratch in your throat, despair tries to take root again. It always starts this way, with small doubts, with big silences, with the weight of all the questions you can't answer. What if the crops never return? What if the baby doesn't survive another storm? What if this land has stopped loving you? And then you remember, you're not the only one asking. Neighbors are disappearing. Not slowly, but all at once. One morning, the house across the field stands tall, canvas flapping, boards freshly nailed. The next, it's abandoned. The windows are left open, as if in surrender. No note, no farewell. Just gone. You watch their tracks through the dust, wheel ruts leading west, swallowed quickly by the next storm. You stand by the fence and imagine their journey. California, maybe. Oregon. Places where the sky still knows how to be blue. You wave, but no one sees. And even if they did, what would they say? Stay strong? You've been strong. For years. Some families split. A father leaves to find work elsewhere. A child is sent to live with distant relatives. A mother walks alone to a town rumored to have milk. Each departure feels like a crack in something sacred. You hear stories of children sleeping under bridges, families begging at train stations, strangers sharing scraps near tent cities. You hold your own tighter, but it's hard, because the ones who remain carry more than their share. You see it in your mother's eyes, the way she watches the stove flicker, measuring hope by flame. You see it in your father's hands, the calluses deepening as he nails patches onto already patched walls. You hear it in your sister's cough, persistent, rhythmic, marking time like a sorrowful clock. Fear becomes a currency. Gets traded silently in glances, in sighs, in the weight of footsteps dragging across the floor. You don't speak of it much. Words don't help. They only make it real. So you talk about potatoes, about chores, about the weather, but never about the ache. There are moments, many, too many, when despair sneaks in like dust through the seams. You feel it when the garden refuses to grow, when the water jug dries faster than usual, when the radio skips past every station except static. You begin to wonder if the world remembers you, if survival is just a form of forgetting. But then, something small happens. Your brother finds an apple core in town and splits it 4 ways. A neighbor brings a scrap of cloth, bright red, and your mother stitches it into the baby's quilt. The radio crackles, and for 20 minutes plays a song so soft it makes you cry without sound. Hope isn't loud here. It doesn't announce itself. It arrives in whispers, in offerings, in stubbornness. You keep sweeping the floor, even though it will be dusty again in hours. You mend shoes with twine. You write poems in chalk on the wall. You pour water carefully, reverently. You smile when the biscuit rises just enough to split. Your father builds a new shelf, not because you need one, but because creation fights against despair. Your mother hums old hymns while sewing. Your sister draws suns on every scrap of paper she finds. Some nights, the family gathers by the stove, even if it's not burning. You sit in a circle, wrapped in quilts, and tell stories. Not of dust, not of storms, but of old summers. Of baseball games played in green fields. Of lemonade stands. Of sunflowers taller than the barn. You laugh, just a little. Then someone coughs. But the laughter remains, a defiant echo. You hear word of a festival in a nearby town, a gathering to celebrate what still remains. Families share recipes, play music, trade goods. You don't go. You can't spare the travel. But knowing it happened gives shape to hope, because people still believe in gathering, in joy, in the possibility of better. Your sister begins to write letters to strangers, addressed to future me, telling her stories, dreams, promises. She doesn't mail them. She ties them with string and hides them beneath the mattress. One day, she says, one day they'll matter. Hope is sometimes ridiculous, but it's necessary. It tells you to patch the roof, even though the next storm may tear it off. It tells you to plant seeds, even when the soil is hostile. It tells you to sing, even when your voice cracks with thirst. Despair wants you to give up. Hope dares you not to. You paint a flower on the door of the shack. Bright yellow, the color of memory. Your father shakes his head, amused. But later, you see him touch it gently, like it's proof of something. You bake a peach pie with the last jar you've saved. The crust burns slightly. The flavor is more salt than sweet. But everyone eats it like it's sacred. Your mother kisses your forehead. The baby smiles. Your brother licks the fork clean. Tomorrow will be hard again. You know this, but tonight there is pie, and that is enough. You step outside briefly before bed. The air is cool, still. The wind rests for now. You scan the sky. There are no stars. The dust still hangs too thick, but somewhere behind it, you know they remain. Invisible, but present, like hope, waiting for the right moment to shine. The shack is held together by nails, planks, rope, and the resolve of the woman who lives inside it. Her hands, worn from labor and etched by time, move with a kind of practiced urgency that comes not from panic, but from repetition. Every day in the Dust Bowl is the same war fought with different tools. And it is the women, the mothers, the daughters, the grandmothers, who shoulder the fight not because they chose it, but because survival chose them. You watch your mother crouch over the stove, coaxing flame from scraps of wood soaked in dust. The stove wheezes and the smoke curls upward, slow and reluctant, stained by grit. She doesn't flinch. She tightens her scarf around her mouth and fans the flame gently, hoping it will hold long enough to warm a pot of beans or boil a cloth for the baby's fever. Her hair is tied back with twine, her apron stained with flour and ash, and her eyes, tired, fierce, track every movement in the room. You can't remember the last time she sat down just to sit. Even rest feels like rebellion. The dust is everywhere, but she fights it anyway. She sweeps 3 times a day, knowing the dust will return before she finishes. She beats rugs until her arms ache. She boils linens not just to clean, but to prove something, that care still matters, even when comfort has left. In between chores, she patches clothing with threads pulled from torn pillowcases, turns worn-out skirts into fabric for curtains, and rubs lard into cracked elbows because that's all she has. If she's lucky, the baby's rash fades. If not, she tightens the cloth and moves on. In other homes, the stories echo. A neighbor's mother mixes flour with soda water to create makeshift poultices. Another woman kneels in a collapsed barn to recover a spool of wire she might repurpose for curtains. One girl, no older than 16, has become the caretaker for 5 siblings after her parents left for work in another county. Her hair is graying at the roots not from age, but from dust and worry. And still, she sings lullabies with a voice hoarse from sweeping, from rationing, from crying when no one's watching. Meals are not just meals anymore. They're acts of invention. Your mother uses stale biscuits soaked in watered-down milk to soften a stew made from boiled weeds. She adds a bit of pork fat saved from last month, stirring slowly, praying the children won't taste what's missing. When the food is served, she always eats last, if at all. Her plate is often scraped clean before she touches it, but she smiles anyway. She calls it a mother's portion. You know what it really is. Sacrifice measured in silence. She listens more than she speaks, not because she lacks voice, but because she knows the importance of presence. When your father stares at the wall for hours, thinking of the fields that will never recover, she sits beside him quietly, fingers wrapped around a chipped mug of tea. Her stillness offers something words never could: permission to feel, to grieve, to not pretend. There are days when the storms howl louder than memory. The roof rattles, the windows scream, and the baby won't stop coughing. You huddle together under quilts, shaking with the noise. Your mother doesn't panic. She checks the window cloths, secures the pantry, holds the child, and whispers hymns passed down from her own mother. Her voice is low, cracked, but steady. It cuts through the wind, and somehow that changes everything. Fear is a beast, but she rides it. Even illness is her domain. The doctor hasn't visited in months. The medicine cabinet is empty save for a bit of syrup and a jar of mustard. Your sister's fever lingers, so your mother creates salves from onions and honey. She heats water with ashes and vinegar. She wraps compresses around wrists and necks and sings songs meant to soothe. She doesn't claim to cure, but she comforts, and that's enough. The fever breaks eventually. The storm doesn't win. She mends not just clothes, but spirits. When you cry quietly at night, thinking about how the garden died again, she strokes your hair and tells stories of blossoms, of honeysuckle and tulips and tomatoes, so red they looked painted. Her words build pictures in your head that no dust can erase. She reminds you of color in a world gone brown. You don't believe her entirely, but the softness in her voice makes you pretend. Women here keep journals not for luxury, but for survival. Your aunt writes in the margins of newspapers, tracking rainfall, counting coughs, cataloging memories of green days. She says it helps her remember there's a future. Another woman down the lane crochets with rags, shaping dust-soaked yarn into baby booties for a child still unnamed. They create because creation defies despair. A baby blanket can be a rebellion. A poem written on a flour sack can be a monument. They do not cry often, and when they do, it's not loud. It's measured. A pause near the stove, a moment by the garden, a soft breath beneath the quilt. Their tears are not weakness. They are fuel. You've seen your mother weep while washing beans for soup, then rise and hammer a new board to the wall before anyone notices. She's allowed to fall apart, but never for long. Some leave. Some women pack their homes into crates, strap babies to their backs, and walk toward trains headed west. They carry letters, photographs, cans of peaches. They do not speak much. They do not promise. But they move, and that motion becomes its own kind of courage. Others stay, rooted to the shack like trees refusing to die. Your grandmother says leaving is surrender. She sits in a chair made from salvage doors and knits scarves for children who've outgrown boots. She remembers the rain. She remembers harvest. She tells you that women are the keepers of memory, and memory is stronger than dust. You believe her because you have to. There is no glamour in this labor, no praise, no medals, just the knowledge that without these women, everything would collapse. The walls would fall. The fires would die. The babies would cough and never stop. But because of them, life, broken, tattered, dirty, continues. They are mothers and daughters and neighbors and midwives. They hold together the threads of families, unraveling beneath the weight of storms and hunger and silence. They are the backbone of the Dust Bowl, unnoticed, uncelebrated, but essential. Every stitch sewn, every biscuit baked, every cloth pressed against a fevered forehead is a testament, not to survival, to love, to stubborn, beautiful, dust-covered love. The farm doesn't speak anymore. It used to hum with life, the rustle of wheat against the wind, the low groans of cattle settling into shade, the rhythmic thump of boots against soft loam. Now it groans under weight it can't carry. The fields are brittle. The barn leans like a drunk against the dust. And the men who remain, the fathers, the sons, the husbands, don't speak much either. Their language has changed. It's no longer words. It's motion, action, the swing of a hammer, the scraping of rust, the breath held as clouds gather, not to rain, but to threaten. You watch your father walk the fence line again, the same path he's taken for years, boots grinding against sand, eyes scanning a horizon that no longer returns the favor. It's not routine anymore. It's a ritual. Every step is a protest against surrender. Before the storms, farming was a conversation with the land. You tilled gently, sowed with care, waited. The land answered with grain, with fruit, with grass so thick you could lose your hat in it. Men believed in that dialogue. It was a sacred exchange. But now the earth has gone mute. Or worse, hostile. The plow no longer slices through soft soil. It drags. It claws at sand. The blades dull faster. The fields refuse to cooperate. Your father tries new techniques. He reads pamphlets from the government, tests crosswise plowing to slow erosion, buries seed deeper in hopes the wind won't steal it. Some methods hold promise. Most fail. Still, he persists. Because to stop would mean acknowledging that the land no longer cares. You wake early, before the heat grips the shack, and watch the men strategize. The neighbors gather on weekends, leaning against toolboxes, arms crossed, faces drawn tight. They talk about windbreaks, rows of shrubs or trees planted along the fields to tame the gusts. It's an old idea with new urgency. They discuss the angle of rows, the depth of trenching, the cost of planting trees that may not survive. One man brought in Russian thistle, swearing it would hold the soil. Another swore by wild rye. Your father said nothing, just nodded and kept digging. He doesn't believe in talk anymore, unless it's followed by sweat. The tools they use are warm but functional. Shovels with splintered handles, hose bent from overuse, rakes missing teeth. There's no money for replacements. Every tool is treated like an heirloom. Every nail is saved. Every bolt is bartered. A broken wagon wheel isn't discarded. It's restrapped, rebolted, dragged across the field anyway. The fight for the farm is messy and unromantic. It's grease-stained hands tightening rope over flapping canvas. It's patched roofs that fail at the first gust. It's watering dead soil just to remember how it used to smell. They build windbreaks like fortresses. Your father cuts fallen timber, binds posts with wire, layers sandbags at the edges. He plants hedgerows, meager, sparse, knowing they'll take years to grow and hoping the farm has years to give. Every structure erected is less a defense against dust and more a declaration. We are still here. He walks the perimeter every evening, hammer tucked in his belt, fingers brushing the posts like he's checking the pulse of his land. There's reverence in the way he works, a quiet belief that effort, if not rewarded, still means something. Hope has left other homes. You've seen trucks piled high with furniture and dreams, families fleeing west for rumors of fruit and work and clean skies. But your father stayed, not because he's proud, because he's stubborn. He believes the land has memory, that it remembers every harvest, every fence mended, every prayer whispered into the soil. He talks to the earth sometimes, beneath his breath, while working the furrows. You once heard him say, "Come on now, we're not done." It wasn't a plea, it was a command. The men age quickly here. Wrinkles deepen across sunburned brows. Knees creak with every step. Hands stiffen, fingers blackened with grit and bruised from labor. They speak less, not from lack of thought, but from exhaustion. Conversations occur in nods, in shared looks. and the clink of mugs filled with muddy water passed hand to hand. When one man's barn collapses, 3 others show up at dawn with planks and nails. No one asks, no one needs to. The battle is communal. Loss belongs to everyone. Your brother joined the effort recently. He's 14 but looks older. A boy who had to abandon childhood beneath layers of work and dust. He follows your father across the field, mimics the bend of his back, matches the rhythm of his steps. His hands blister but don't complain. He's learning the language of the soil, not through school, but through sweat. When he drove a nail into a fence post last week, your father nodded. That was enough. That was praise. Inside the shack, the tools rest beneath the window, lined up like sentinels. Your father sharpens them nightly, sitting on a crate, whetstone in one hand, rag in the other. The scraping sound is ritualistic, a slow rhythm that means tomorrow has a plan. You watch him work. The way he leans in, the care he takes with each edge. It's not about perfection. It's about readiness. The storm may come. The soil may refuse. But the tools will be sharp. That's the promise he makes. Some mornings, you find him staring at the horizon, boots planted wide, jaw tight. The light filters through dust in strange hues, gold, rust, gray. It's never clean. He doesn't blink. He surveys the land like a soldier before a battle, calculating where to dig, where to build, where to surrender. He doesn't always move. Sometimes the staring is the work. Sometimes the silence is the prayer. Letters arrive from distant relatives who left long ago. They speak of jobs in the city, of rain that falls without begging, of soil that listens. They urge your father to come. He doesn't reply. He folds the letters neatly and stores them beneath the mattress. He keeps them not as possibility, but as record. Proof that choices exist. Proof that he made his. Every harvest season is a gamble. You plant anyway. You drag rusted plows across fields hoping seeds will hold. You water them with rationed jugs. Shade them with your body when wind gusts too strong. And still, most die. But some survive. You find green shoots beneath a layer of grit and shout for the family. Everyone gathers, kneels, touches the fragile stalk. Your father smiles almost, and he returns to work. There's a map tacked to the wall near the stove. It's yellowed, torn at the edges, dotted with pencil marks. Your father updates it with each storm, tracing patterns, marking damage, planning repairs. It's not just geography. It's a battlefield layout. And your shack? Headquarters. When the sky darkens unexpectedly, he moves faster. Nails boards to windows. Reinforces the shed. Ties the barn doors shut with rope. You help. The routine is so ingrained it feels choreographed. The dust comes. The shack shudders. The world turns brown. But inside, you are ready. The tools have been sharpened. The windbreak has been checked. The prayers have been whispered. You eat dinner together after every storm. Not much food, but enough to share. Your father raises his mug and mutters, "Still here." Everyone nods. That's the victory speech. That's the anthem. Still here. One evening, your father builds a small bench from salvaged wood, places it beneath the last standing tree on the property. He sits there when the sun allows, not for shade, but for memory. That tree was planted before the dust came, back when your grandfather still worked the fields. It's bent, bare, tired, but it remains. So does your father. So do you. You've seen it coming for weeks. There's a hush that settles over homes before the departure begins. Not a peaceful silence, but one that signals something has unraveled for good. Families who once patched walls with twine and stitched together hope from flour sacks have now run out of thread. One by one, wagons groan to life, trucks rattle across cracked roads, and the Dust Bowl claims another set of roots too damaged to cling. You stand in the yard and watch them go, Dust swirling around boots and tires, children clutching warm dolls, mothers scanning the horizon for places they'll try to call home. It's not just movement, it's farewell. It's surrender dressed in coats that no longer hold warmth. The decisions are never easy. Each family weighs survival against history. The land they leave behind holds the graves of grandparents and the laughter of newborns. Every fence post was once hammered by hands that believed in permanence. But no matter how sacred the soil was, it no longer listens. Crops refuse to rise. Wells echo with emptiness. Dust pours through every window seam like grief itself. And eventually, staying isn't noble. It's lethal. The men stop plowing. The women stop sewing. The children cough until sleep becomes their only comfort. It's in this exhaustion that the decision to migrate begins. Quiet, deliberate, heartbreaking. You talk with your neighbor before they go. Their truck is loaded with tools, quilts, jars of beans, and maps folded like prayers. The father says they heard of orchards in California, peaches so ripe they bleed when picked. The mother nods, eyes puffy from goodbye. The children sit in the back, knees tucked under chins, whispering about rivers and sky. You give them a jug of water. They give you a photograph. Nay, there is enough, but it's what remains. You wave as they disappear into a curtain of dust, the sound of the engine swallowed by the wind. The migration isn't uniform. Some leave in caravans, extended families packed into trucks with bedding strapped to the roof. Others walk. They hitch rides when they can, sleep under bridges when they must. The roads west are lined with motion. Boots pressing into dirt, tires streaking dust, songs hum to mask the uncertainty. You hear about families sleeping in fields, bathing in irrigation ditches, begging for work at farms already overrun with hands. But still they go, because hope on the road is better than despair at home. You see it in faces passing through town, sunburned, hungry, blistered. Some offer labor for a bowl of beans. Others simply ask directions. Children stare wide-eyed at storefronts, wondering if these places carry dreams. The migrants are a patchwork of stories stitched together by need. They come from Oklahoma, Texas, Kansas, New Mexico. Each tells of barns buried under sand, of sickness that comes from breathing, of prayers unanswered. Some cry when they speak of the land they left. Others don't speak at all. You learn to recognize the look, not defeat, but a peculiar mix of loss and longing. They walk not because they want to, but because they can't remain still. The term Okies begins to circulate, a name that quickly transforms from description to insult. In towns farther west, signs appear. No jobs for Okies. Okies go home. It's cruel, but predictable. Migrants are viewed not as survivors, but as competition. They arrive with hands willing to work, but there's not enough work to go around. Many are denied entry, refused shelter, turned away from fields overflowing with workers. Still, they persist. They live in tent cities, line highways with makeshift homes stitched from canvas and timber scraps. Every stitch is resistance. Stories return like whispers on the wind. A man found a job picking grapes for 2 cents a bushel. A woman traded her locket for a loaf of bread. A boy wandered away during a storm and was never found. Some who left too late found nothing and returned, changed, thinner, quieter. They built new walls with salvaged boards, planted seeds again despite everything, became ghosts in their own homes. You hear of entire towns emptying, of schools closing, of churches abandoned. Migration doesn't just reshape families. It reshapes history. Your own family talks about leaving. Your father paces at night, staring at maps under flickering lamplight. Your mother wraps keepsakes in cloth, just in case. You've packed and unpacked twice. Each time it feels more real. The dust never gives you a day off. It coats your throat, steals your sleep, turns your meals gritty. You dream of lakes. You dream of apples so crisp they shatter between teeth. You dream of wind that doesn't carry sorrow. And yet, part of you fears leaving more than staying. This is your land, even if it's broken. Your memories were born here, even if they're fading. The radio speaks of Roosevelt's programs, of camps built for migrants, of new farming techniques that might save the soil. You wonder if it's enough. You wonder if it's a delay rather than a cure. The government sends relief workers to nearby towns. They distribute masks, books, water, but the storms keep coming. The costs deepen. The nights stretch long. Your father says, if we stay, we die slow. If we leave, we die trying. No one disagrees. You begin to notice patterns. The ones who leave early have better odds. Cleaner clothes, quieter children, more options. The ones who wait until everything is gone bring only despair with them. The trucks get older. The wagons creak louder. Eventually, even walking becomes the only path forward. You meet a man who walked 3 counties, dragging 2 children and a crate of flour behind him. He tells you, I ain't going back. There ain't no back. And then he disappears down the road. There's a ceremony in leaving, not grand, but intimate. You sweep the shack one last time. You bury broken toys under the tree out back. You take a handful of soil from the garden, dry, cracked, but still yours. You wrap the Bible, the photograph, the wedding quilt. You say goodbye to the fence that never stood straight. You press your palm against the doorframe and whisper thanks, even though it never kept the dust out. You load the truck, tie the blankets, check the wheels. The engine sputters. You all climb in. The road is long and uncertain, but it moves. The sky ahead is murky, just like the one behind. But with each mile, you trade silence for motion. And motion, at least, feels like hope. You've seen it coming for weeks. There's a hush that settles over homes before the departure begins. Not a peaceful silence, but one that signals something has unraveled for good. Families who once patched walls with twine and stitched together hope from flour sacks have now run out of thread. One by one, wagons groan to life. Trucks rattle across cracked roads, and the Dust Bowl claims another set of roots too damaged to cling. You stand in the yard and watch them go. Dust swirling around boots and tires, children clutching worn dolls, mothers scanning the horizon for places they'll try to call home. It's not just movement, it's farewell. It's surrender dressed in coats that no longer hold warmth. The decisions are never easy. Each family weighs survival against history. The land they leave behind holds the graves of grandparents and the laughter of newborns. Every fence post was once hammered by hands that believed in permanence. But no matter how sacred the soil was, it no longer listens. Crops refuse to rise. Wells echo with emptiness. Dust pours through every window seam like grief itself. And eventually, staying isn't noble. It's lethal. The men stop plowing. The women stop sewing. The children cough until sleep becomes their only comfort. It's in this exhaustion that the decision to migrate begins, quiet, deliberate, heartbreaking. You talk with your neighbor before they go. Their truck is loaded with tools, quilts, jars of beans, and maps folded like prayers. The father says they heard of orchards in California, peaches so ripe they bleed when picked. The mother nods, eyes puffy from goodbye. The children sit in the back, knees tucked under chins, whispering about rivers and sky. You give them a jug of water. They give you a photograph. Nay, there is enough, but it's what remains. You wave as they disappear into a curtain of dust, the sound of the engine swallowed by the wind. The migration isn't uniform. Some leave in caravans, extended families packed into trucks with bedding strapped to the roof. Others walk. They hitch rides when they can, sleep under bridges when they must. The roads west are lined with motion, boots pressing into dirt, tires streaking dust. songs hummed to mask the uncertainty. You hear about families sleeping in fields, bathing in irrigation ditches, begging for work at farms already overrun with hands, but still they go, because hope on the road is better than despair at home. You see it in faces passing through town, sunburned, hungry, blistered. Some offer labor for a bowl of beans. Others simply ask directions. Children stare wide-eyed at storefronts, wondering if these places carry dreams. The migrants are a patchwork of stories, stitched together by need. They come from Oklahoma, Texas, Kansas, New Mexico. Each tells of barns buried under sand, of sickness that comes from breathing, of prayers unanswered. Some cry when they speak of the land they left. Others don't speak at all. You learn to recognize the look, not defeat, but a peculiar mix of loss and longing. They walk not because they want to, but because they can't remain still. The term Okies begins to circulate, a name that quickly transforms from description to insult. In towns farther west, signs appear. No jobs for Okies. Okies go home. It's cruel, but predictable. Migrants are viewed not as survivors, but as competition. They arrive with hands willing to work, but there's not enough work to go around. Many are denied entry, refused shelter, turned away from fields overflowing with workers. Still, they persist. They live in tent cities, line highways with makeshift homes, stitched from canvas and timber scraps. Every stitch is resistance. Stories return like whispers on the wind. A man found a job picking grapes for 2 cents a bushel. A woman traded her locket for a loaf of bread. A boy wandered away during a storm and was never found. Some who left too late found nothing and returned, changed, thinner, quieter. They built new walls with salvaged boards, planted seeds again despite everything, became ghosts in their own homes. You hear of entire towns emptying, of schools closing, of churches abandoned. Migration doesn't just reshape families. It reshapes history. Your own family talks about leaving. Your father paces at night, staring at maps under flickering lamplight. Your mother wraps keepsakes in cloth, just in case. You've packed and unpacked twice. Each time, it feels more real. The dust never gives you a day off. It coats your throat, steals your sleep, turns your meals gritty. You dream of lakes. You dream of apples so crisp they shatter between teeth. You dream of wind that doesn't carry sorrow. And yet, part of you fears leaving more than staying. This is your land, even if it's broken. Your memories were born here, even if they're fading. The radio speaks of Roosevelt's programs, of camps built for migrants, of new farming techniques that might save the soil. You wonder if it's enough. You wonder if it's a delay rather than a cure. The government sends relief workers to nearby towns. They distribute masks, books, water. But the storms keep coming. The costs deepen. The nights stretch long. Your father says, if we stay, we die slow. If we leave, we die trying. No one disagrees. You begin to notice patterns. The ones who leave early have better odds. Cleaner clothes, quieter children, more options. The ones who wait until everything is gone bring only despair with them. The trucks get older. The wagons creak louder. Eventually, even walking becomes the only path forward. You meet a man who walked 3 counties, dragging 2 children and a crate of flour behind him. He tells you, I ain't going back. There ain't no back. And then he disappears down the road. There's a ceremony in leaving. Not grand, but intimate. You sweep the shack one last time. You bury broken toys under the tree out back. You take a handful of soil from the garden. Dry, cracked, but still yours. You wrap the Bible, the photograph, the wedding quilt. You say goodbye to the fence that never stood straight. You press your palm against the doorframe and whisper thanks, even though it never kept the dust out. You load the truck, tie the blankets, check the wheels. The engine sputters. You all climb in. The road is long and uncertain, but it moves. The sky ahead is murky, just like the one behind. But with each mile, you trade silence for motion. And motion, at least, feels like hope. You don't notice it at first. The air still carries the flavor of dust, faint but familiar. The sky, dulled for so long, begins to reveal shades it once hid. Not the vibrant blue of childhood summers, but a timid hue as if testing whether it's safe to shine again. A wind still hums, but not with rage. Its edges have softened. And in the slow unfolding of days that don't scream, you begin to recognize something strange. Quiet that isn't waiting to be shattered. The storms, though not gone forever, no longer arrive with the fury that once turned daylight into dusk. You step outside and listen, not for the roar of dust walls swallowing towns, but for birds. It's been years since their songs filled the mornings. Now, faint chirps cut through silence like thread through cloth. You scan the sky. A single cloud floats without menace. It's not shaped like thunder or grief. It simply drifts lazy, benign. You exhale slowly, tasting air that doesn't claw. It feels wrong and right all at once. The land hasn't healed. That would require time you haven't yet earned. But it's trying. Sparse grass peeks through cracks in the soil like timid survivors. In the corner of the field, a patch of rye finally holds its ground. Not lush, not proud, but persistent. Trees planted years ago by conservation workers stand taller now. Their leaves catch breeze instead of cowering beneath it. You touch one gently, fingers brushing bark that feels like progress. Inside the shack, the atmosphere has shifted. Dust still lingers in corners, but less aggressively. You sweep and notice the effort lasts longer. The cloths pinned over windows dry quicker. Even the light dances differently through the room. It's still a shelter, patched, fragile, crooked, but now it feels less like a cage. You breathe deeper. The walls don't press inward anymore. Your family has changed in ways no photograph could show. Your father's walk is slower, not from age alone, but from years spent dragging hope through ruin. His hands, once cracked with labor, now tremble slightly when he lifts a shovel. Still, he works, plants, repairs, watches the sky with cautious eyes. He speaks more now. Not often, and not loudly, but when he does, his voice carries the weight of survival. "It's still ours," he says one morning, standing in the middle of the field. He doesn't mean the land. He means the story. Your mother has reclaimed small rituals that dust had stolen. She bakes again, not elaborate meals, but cornbread that rises, biscuits that hold shape. She hums while sewing, her voice stronger, steadier. She smiles at the baby more, lifts her into windows to show her a son that isn't hidden. On the days she cries, it's not from despair. It's from memory, from knowing how far you've come. The children laugh differently. They don't duck when the wind picks up. They play outside longer. They chase tumbleweeds not out of fear, but for fun. The youngest draws flowers on the floorboards with chalk made from crushed eggshells. Your brother, who hadn't spoken much since the worst storm, begins to read aloud again, stories of explorers, oceans, forests, places that don't taste of dust. And when he finishes a chapter, your father nods. That's all it takes. The town is quieter than before, not because there's less to do, but because there's less of everyone. Many homes remain empty. Barns sag, stores boarded, schoolhouses silent. But some come back. A few families who left return with new tools, new seeds, new names carved into old mailboxes. They fix porches. They repaint doors. They ask questions and don't wait for perfect answers. Community grows from fragments. Shared tools. Shared meals. Shared history. You attend a church service one Sunday, the first in years. The walls still hold dust. The pews squeak. The preacher's voice cracks on the third hymn. But no one cares. Everyone sings. Children squirm. Elders close their eyes. In the back row, a boy weeps quietly into his palms. Not out of grief, but relief. He survived. You survived. And the air, fragile as it is, allows breath again. But the scars remain. They aren't visible on skin. They live in gestures, in choices, in pauses. You walk the field with your father and notice how his hand twitches when the wind shifts. Your mother keeps a jar of water tucked behind the stove, even though the pump works now. The baby sleeps with a damp cloth beneath her pillow. Habit, not necessity. And you, still flinching when clouds darken, write a diary that tracks weather not for curiosity, but for safety. The land will never forget. Neither will you. There's a fence post outside the shack, half buried, rusted. It's crooked, useless, but your father won't remove it. Let it stand, he says. That post's seen more than most men. It becomes a monument, not to tragedy, but to endurance. You hang a ribbon from it, one your mother stitched from old curtains. It flutters weakly. That's enough. Government programs continue, slowly. You receive a check that helps repair the barn. A new crop rotation plan is suggested. Your father agrees to try it. Saplings arrive by train, boxed neatly, roots damp. You plant them in silence. You don't hope aloud, but you hope. Your sister writes a poem. You read it aloud after supper, voice shaky, tears uninvited. It begins, "The dust tried to take us. The dust failed." Everyone claps, not because it's poetic, but because it's true. Storms still come, but they pass. Rain falls again, sporadic, shy, but present. One night, thunder rolls and lightning sketches across the sky. You all run to the porch and watch, soaking in a storm that brings water instead of fear. The soil drinks greedily. Your mother holds out a cup to catch raindrops. You taste one. It's cold. It's clean. You cry. The shack may not last forever. The barn will need more nails. The field, though less angry, still requires coaxing. But you are here. Still. You wake each day, open the door, step into air that doesn't bite. You walk the land with boots that know loss and hands that remember planting. You touch the soil and whisper thanks, because the sky finally cleared. And though the scars remain, so does you. You remember the stories because they refuse to vanish. Even when the wind tried to strip away everything, roofs, soil, fences, breath, it couldn't take the words. They clung to the corners of rooms, tucked themselves into quilts, settled between spoonfuls of beans and the silence after prayers. The Dust Bowl didn't just choke the land. It tested something deeper, the capacity to endure, not for glory, but because quitting wasn't an option. Survival became more than staying alive. It became a kind of stubborn artistry, a way of stitching together broken days until they resembled a life. And those stories, born in the belly of the storm, still whisper their truth. You remember the woman who stitched socks from potato sacks and taught her daughter to press cloth against her mouth, not just for the dust, but for dignity. She could have fled, like others did, chasing rain across state lines. But she stayed, not from ignorance, from defiance. Her garden never grew, her husband's cough never stopped, but every morning she boiled water, cleaned the floor, and sang lullabies over cracked lips. Her daughter still tells the story, not because it's unique, but because it's hers. You remember the boy who buried his toys beneath the windbreak trees. He said it was so the dust wouldn't steal them. Each one had a name, carved from wood, painted with whatever scraps of color were left. When the storms came, he didn't cry. He crouched in the corner of the shack and whispered stories to his toys, now tucked safely underground. Decades later, he returned to that field, dug up a block of wood with faded paint, and placed it on his shelf. The dust had tried. The toys had waited. You remember the preacher who held service in a barn after the church roof collapsed. He preached with dust in his lungs and love in his voice. The congregation sat on hay bales, scarves tied tight around their mouths, eyes squinting through haze. He didn't promise salvation from the storm. He offered fellowship, a place where grief was shared, where prayers sounded less like begging and more like songs. When the barn finally fell, they moved to the grove. And when the grove dried up, they stood in the field. Because the Spirit didn't need walls, just people. You remember your own family, stitched together by rituals too quiet for history books. The mornings started with sweeping, the afternoons with coughing, the evenings with stories. Some were about rain, others about farms that still bloomed in distant places. But most were about now, about how the shack held despite its limp walls, how the pot stretched despite the beans thinning, how your mother smiled even when her hands shook. Those weren't lessons. They were blueprints for survival. And you remember the men. Their hands knotted from shovels. Their backs bowed not from surrender, but from repetition. They weren't heroes in the cinematic sense. They didn't lead marches or give speeches. They fixed fences. They planted seeds that wouldn't grow. They walked perimeters every sunset, making sure the wind hadn't stolen everything. You saw them cry sometimes, usually alone, usually quiet, but you also saw them rise. Not taller, just steadier. And in that steadiness was grace. You remember the child who danced in a dust storm. For a moment, she forgot fear. Her feet lifted grit. Her arms sliced the air, and she laughed, a sound so jarring it made her mother drop the basin she was carrying. That laugh lingered long after the wind died. Her neighbors remembered it when hope thinned. Her brother repeated it in songs. Her dance became legend, not because she was brave, but because she was innocent enough to reclaim joy. There's a man you met who kept a journal during the worst years, not of doom, of thanks. Every entry listed one thing: a warm biscuit, an extra nail, a day without coughing. He didn't lie to himself. He buried children, watched neighbors vanish, shoveled dust until his hands bled. But he wrote gratitude anyway. His journal survived. Now historians read it. But more importantly, his grandchildren read it. These stories are the soil now. The land changed, bruised, thinner, unsure. But what grew from it wasn't just rye or wheat. It was memory, fortitude carved into the grain of floorboards, scratched into the underside of windowsills. Every shack still standing is part museum, part shrine. They must be remembered. Because history without heart is just weather reports. Because resilience is not abstract. It has names, faces, voices. You think about the woman who walked 10 miles with her children to reach a town rumored to have food. She arrived covered in dust, shoes torn, eyes red. But when someone handed her a biscuit, she broke it in half. Not for herself, for someone else beside her. That act didn't feed everyone, but it fed something deeper. And that story survives, passed between relatives like heirlooms. You think about the teacher who held class under the one tree left standing. She drew letters in the dirt, shaped numbers from stone, sang geography in song. Her students coughed between answers. She coughed between questions, but they learned. And now they teach. You think about the man who fixed his tractor with wire, soap, and hope. It didn't last long, but he got one more field plowed. And in that field, something grew, barely, briefly, beautifully. He took a photo of that sprout. Years later, that photo hangs in a museum. You think about the mother who planted tulips even when the soil swore it was done. She watered with rationed tears. They never bloomed, but every storm she whispered their names like old friends. One day, her daughter planted tulips somewhere greener. They rose, And now, every spring, she sends a photo back east. And you think about yourself. You survived. You remember. That alone is worth recording. Because the Dust Bowl didn't just leave craters in fields and ceilings in ruins. It taught a generation what endurance means. That silence doesn't equal defeat. That hope isn't loud. It's persistent. That every cough, every patch, every poem mattered. Even now, in cleaner air, these lessons breathe. So when the sky clears, don't just move on. Move forward. Bring these stories with you. Write them. Share them. Paint them on wood. Stitch them into quilts. Speak them when your child asks, "What happened when the world turned brown?" Don't describe the dust. Describe the people who danced through it. Because this isn't just memory. It's foundation. And from it, everything else grows. After all the wind and grit, hunger and silence, broken dreams and unbreakable spirit, we arrived at the quiet aftermath. Life in a Dust Bowl shack wasn't just the story of surviving storms. It was the story of surviving doubt, despair, and years of watching the sky turn its back. Through cracked ceilings and coughing children, from government aid to the long walk west, we bore witness to what it truly meant to endure when hope was buried under dust. This journey has honored those whose voices were nearly lost in the roar of wind, the mothers who cooked over choking fires, the fathers who walked fence lines with blistered hands, the children who laughed through the coughing. Their stories are not footnotes in history. They are lessons, reminders, warnings, and most of all, proof. If this video moved you, if you felt the storm in your chest and the resilience in your bones, subscribe for more stories that dig deeper into the human experience. Like, comment below. Share your thoughts or family memories from this era. Every story adds another brick to the house that history tried to tear down. Dust settles, but these stories won't. Thanks for watching.